Hey, how's everybody doing? Sorry I took a second there. I was having some issues with Streamlab where it wouldn't bring up the actual stream. So I guess that's why they call it Streamlabs. So how's everybody doing today? I'm just getting things reset up. I had a reboot, so it's going to take a second just to get things rolling. So I should have them up momentarily. I'm just pulling up VS Code and all those things I had to shut down. So let me clean these out real quick here. If you want, you can start posting questions that you might have in the chat, and I'll take a look at those in a second. Let me just peek in. Hey Jeff, how's it going? A little bit quiet in here today. Normally it's about 10-15 people. So hopefully it picks up. Do you have a GTR board yourself, or do you have something different? Yeah, it looks like somebody else just popped in. Okay, well, I've got to get a couple more things set up here real quick. Oh, looks like the browser's set up. Desktop is close. I just have to go over to downloads and fix that real quick. But there were some questions that came up with the GTR board on Monday, I think. I don't remember what all the questions were. So we'll address that in a second. Gotta make sure that everything is showing here. We'll have to turn on Pronterface. Here we go. Okay, Pronterface is up. So let me check on the chat here real quick. You have a GTR? How's it working out for you, Jeff? Are there any things that you're having trouble setting up on your GTR? Yeah, I don't know what an exoslide is. Let me look it up right quick here because I'm a little clueless on some of the terms. Let's see what it looks like here. Okay, so you're running along a rail with a special carriage. Yeah, I kind of designed not an exoslide, but something kind of similar to that a couple years ago. Yeah, the brackets are probably going to be easy to build after you assemble them. But let's see if we can figure out something to do on this board today that'll be interesting for people. A lot of this functionality I haven't still played with. Obviously, I don't want to do the runout valve because that might mean that I need to hook up some hot ends. But maybe we'll do it. I just have to get my table organized a little here. Let me hook this up over here. So I'm going to hook up the power to this over here. This is currently disconnected power-wise, but I'm just going to put the actual power supply cabling in so it's easier to do stuff. This is just for the stepper motors. I'll put in the logic part in a second. So I've got that in there. Now I'll do this one. And finally, trying to avoid doing the heat bed only because of the real estate on my desk. So second and third Z's, you can do a Z here, and a Z here. You can specify them depending upon what you're working with. I think they're actually these two. So if you wanted to do 1, 2, 3, you could do that, but you also have 2 right here. So you have your Z and then your second Z. Hang on, I'm pointing at the wrong things. I'm sorry, your Z and your second Z. And then over here you can do your third and fourth. We could test it and see if it works. I'm not sure how well it will work. Last time I did this, it actually worked, so maybe it's true. But I gotta get some steppers to do this. And I'm gonna have to pull some motors down to do this as well. But it's really kind of simple. All you have to do to pop these out, just go in here. Whoop, I'm actually doing the wrong ones. I actually want to do this one. Like so. And then I'm using UART, so it's going to be this jumper needs to be set. So I'm going to place a jumper right here. That'll take care of the setup. Then I have to do the same for the other ones, so I'm going to do this one, I think. And put the jumper on just like the other one. And then do the last one the same way. And that's how you set them up, at least physically. Then you gotta drop these in. So you have to make sure that you have the enable pin in the right place. You're gonna be using UARTs for your Z stepper. Let's see if I have those on hand. Obviously, this isn't gonna move like a threaded rod, but it'll be similar. I just have to grab those steppers. So the steppers for this are TMC 2209s. I'm not going to put the heat sinks on them because I'm not going to be doing a lot. But there's one. There's 2. Bent pin. Like the pin's slightly bent. See if I can work it in. And then here's 3. So that's the 3 that you'd probably use. And let's see if we can hook up one motor to start. Technically, we don't need all the motors, but it'll prove out that it's working. So there's one. It might get a little messy if I put the other ones down here, so. There's 2. Just tighten this down a little. Let me get one more here someplace. Not sure how well this one's gonna work because it's slightly different. It actually is backwards from the other ones. So I might just flip all of these. So I need to flip this to match the wiring. They're all probably going to go in a direction I don't anticipate. We could fix that. There we go. So that's 3, and they're all with the Z-axis. We'll use sensorless homing, at least for the first stepper, and see if it works. I don't know if it will. You have closed loop on the X and the Y. I've never actually set up closed loop. I looked into it and I was a little concerned with the precision. But I don't have it in front of me to set up, and it might be a mess if I set it up. So I'll look into maybe talking about that in the next tutorial. But this is just stuff I have on hand close by. And I think there's a little bit of work to do on my part understanding closed loop. But it's generally something I don't use. Not yet, at least. Until they increase the precision on it, then I'll probably think about it. But let me pull this up in VS Code so you can see what I'm doing. So in VS Code, we're going to open a folder. Then we're going to go to our downloads folder in my case. The Marlin folder, then the Marlin 2.0 folder, then select folder. You might not be able to see that because I have it limited to the view that you can see. So now what we need to do to set this up is go to Marlin source for boards.h, and we need to define the GTR. So GTR underscore V underscore V, and that'll bring us to our board type. We'll copy that out. Then I'm going to minimize this, minimize source, go to configuration.h, search on motherboard, replace the ramps definition for the board. We'll paste it right here. We're going to change this to -1. That way our serial port will work for us. And then we need to set these steppers. So I'm going to search on A4988. I'm going to locate the Z stepper. I'm going to remove the comment for that. And then it's, I believe we can do 2 and 3. And this might be mapped to the correct things. We'll find out. I know it skips E0. So it's probably E1 and E2. That's common probably to most boards, but it also could be that we need to specify something, but we'll see. I'm going to paste it here for these values, and I'm not going to invert yet because I'm not sure which direction it's traveling in, so I'm going to go to configuration.h. I'm going to search on 800, which brings us to our TMCs for our X, Y, and Z. So here's Z. I'm going to say 750, and then I'm going to see if I can find the other ones, which are right next to it. Looks like we can do more than that if I plug in the other board. So we've got those specified. Next we have to search on, let's see, TMC debug. And we need to remove the monitor just in case there's some errors. And then search on it again. And actually do this. And this is for the debug G code, so we can do it. We then have to search on sensorless homing. And it's actually up. I've just passed it already. So we need to enable this. And we're emulating as if we're trying to do it the same way that we would for regular Z. So I'm going to do the stall sensitivity on Z. and the value is probably going to be 125. I think that's all we have to set up today. I may be forgetting a step, but I'll probably figure it out in a second. So we're going to actually just build it, but we need to set up platform.io.ini because our default environment's incorrect. So I'm going to search on GTR_V, copy the default environment. Whoops. And then I'm going to go all the way back up to the top. If it lets me. There we go. And paste it right here. So I'm going to hit the checkbox and let it build. And while that's building, I'll peek into the chat. Hopefully I haven't forgotten to do something, but I'll show you that I'm going to actually set up the card over here. So let me look at the chat first. Okay, in the chat, no real questions yet. So let's see what we got here. What pulls up the search bar in VS Code? Control F. So it's the CTRL button in the bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard if it's a Windows-based machine. And you hold that down and press the F button, or the letter F. So I'm gonna go over to the camera for a second so you can see what's going on. So over here, I took out the drive off camera. I'm gonna place it inside here. And then I'm gonna place this inside my USB drive because we can't load directly to the board. So once that comes up, what I'm going to do is show you what it looks like. So over here, it says firmware.cur. That was the last build that took place. So if we go over to VS Code, we can check on our build. Inside here, it says that it's successful. So to grab the build, you're going to go up to the top where it says .pio. You're going to click on that. You're going to click on build. And then you're going to click on Bigtree Tech or Bigtree underscore GTR underscore V1 underscore 0. You're going to right click on that and you're going to say reveal and explore. And I'll show you what that looks like now. So this is what it looks like. So you're going to open the GTR folder. And down here we have firmware.bin. So we're going to right click. And we're going to say send to the USB D drive, which is right over here. And that's our firmware right there. We're going to pop that out and install it inside our board. I'm going to pop this out, take it over to here, pull this out, place it in the drive over here. We're actually going to use direct power because if you move it and forget and you put it on the USB power, these won't operate correctly. So I'm going to plug this in. It's just showing that there's power coming from this lead. I'm going to double check my cabling because I just grabbed it early. It looks like it's good. So I'm going to plug that in. It's going to start loading right down in here with a flashing green light. I'm not sure how well you can see it. And once that's complete, we're going to go back over to Pronterface, and I'll show you that. So in Pronterface, we have our board and we have our environment. Now, obviously, the COM port is not correct. So I need to bring up Device Manager. So I'll bring that up on my side. All you do is type device in the Windows search. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here is Device Manager. And we're looking for our COM port, which is going to be 4 in this case. So we're going to go back over to Pronterface. And inside Pronterface, we're going to click on the 1, backspace over it, and say 4. And that's our port. I'm going to click connect. This printer is now online. So I'm going to move the Z-axis. So I'm going to press 10 and see what happens. So as you can see, I almost created a wood chipper. So let's try moving back 1 and seeing what happens. So it's moving a significant amount of distance. So there are a couple ways you can deal with that. Obviously, it's the Z-axis and it's usually on a screw. So I'm going to have to move it slightly less. So I'm going to try homing and seeing what happens. So that's its version of homing in this case. Let's move it 1, 2. So it looks like the other steppers are not working. So there's one more thing that I have to set, and I think I forgot about it, and that's why it's not working. So I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to remove the power for a moment and put it off to the side. We have to go back over to VS Code. So in VS Code, we have to go to the Advanced tab, and inside the Advanced tab, as soon as I get to it, sorry, it's not displaying the way that I normally see it, so let me minimize some stuff. You're going to go to Configuration Advanced, and you're going to say, I think it's steppers. So I'm going to have to search around because it's a bunch of different steppers. Might search on multi. Has multiple extruders. No. So let's search on Z. Maybe that's not too common. That's way too common. So, what do we got here? Let's try dual. So dual steppers, dual end stops. So down here, we have number of extruders, or excuse me, number of Z steppers. Right now it's set to 1, so let's set it to 3 and see what happens. Then let's rebuild and see if this process works. So let me check on the chat here. Yeah, dual Z. Sorry, I'm a little slow when I'm searching for stuff, because I'm afraid I'm gonna mix terms, as you can see. So while that's occurring, I'm gonna pull out the USB drive. You've already seen me do the process once, so I'm just gonna stick it in the computer. When that comes up, I'll go over to .pio, build Big Tree Tech. I'll say reveal an explorer, and then I'll go over there and show you how to copy it over yet again. So open the folder, right click, send to. So now it's on the D drive. Now I'll go back over to the desktop and we'll load it again. So I'll pop it back out. Place it in here. I'll plug this back in and I'll plug the power back in. And hopefully this won't be a mess. So we'll go over to Pronterface. And inside Pronterface, we'll click on Connect. And then we'll try homing again. And the motors are working. So now we can step forward. Now they might be moving opposite directions based on how they're spinning. So let's home that again. And then we'll move it a fraction of a millimeter. So you see how they're spinning in opposite directions? There might be a setting for that. So we could probably go over and check that. So let's go over to VS Code and see if there's actually something in there. So inside VS Code, Let's see. We don't want to do multiple end stops. That confuses things. So all of that is commented out. So I'm not sure if it's moving threaded rods or if it's pulling on pulleys like this one. But I'm guessing that the threaded rods have to be placed in a certain way. But there's no easy way to match these up. So maybe there's a setting up here, but I don't see it. Let's see. Use an end stop adjustment, number of stepper drivers, end stop adjustment, number of stepper drivers. So I don't think you can synchronize them to spin the same way unless, let me power this down. We might be able to, if you have a DuPont connector, grab it, turn it 180 degrees, plug it back in, or you can invert it in software, but the problem is it's tied to all three. You're probably going to have to do it this way. So let's reconnect and see what happens. So I'm going to home it because I know it's going to go a little crazy. Now they're moving in the same direction. So if we go forward, everything is synchronized as far as we can tell with the DuPont connectors. That's one workaround to make them turn the right way. So does anybody have another question? I think people are a little bit ahead of me and I'm missing it in the chat. There is a way to invert the direction, but I'm not sure how it's going to react when I do it in software. It might just invert everything the same and we'll have the problem in the opposite direction. That's why I'm using the DuPont connector. Let's see. We might be able to do a servo tonight. I know somebody was asking about that. I can't do the more than one servo tonight because I have to do a little bit more research, but there's servo pins someplace over here. They're actually used for your BL Touch. Let me power this down. Over here is going to be a servo pin. If we look on here, we can see what's going on in the browser. So let me bring that up. So in the browser, we're going to go to Big Tree Tech, repositories, then we'll type GTR. Brings us to the board. Inside here, we're going to look for the manual. Hoping it's the first one. I always get these confused. Operating instructions. What I'm actually looking for is the pins. So I'm going to be scrolling kind of fast here. That's for power for your extruder. Okay, here we go. Yep. They didn't say which one it is. So let me scroll down here. So it looks like it's right in here. So there's the BL Touch. And the BL Touch is probably what we're going to use for the servo. They share the same pins. Apparently servos are not that important to anybody anymore, allegedly. But let me go to the pins file so I can zoom in better. Gotta find out where they put it. Probably under hardware or maybe pictures. Bottom top. Huh, interesting. So GTR, firmware. Right here. Manual. Maybe that's supposed to be pin. And it is. So you can see it's blown up. So you have ground, 5 volts, and then you have a signal pin. Those are probably the ones that we're going to be working with. So to confirm it, we can actually go to VS Code and see what they say. So inside VS Code, we want to find where the servo pin is. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go over to source pins. I know it's one of these. I always get it confused. And it's right there. We're going to do a search on servo. Or servo over here. And then it says servos. So what we're seeing here is the servo pin being PB11. So if we go back over to the browser, we can look on it and it says PB11. So we need 5 volts and ground for that. So next thing is to investigate servos. And so I need to grab one real quick, so give me a second. I'll put it on the desktop for a second so you can let me know if you see smoke. Funny thing is I have lots of servos. I just don't know where I put them sometimes. They might be in the other room, so this might take a second. Okay, I found a massive servo. Well, it's not massive, but it's not small. It's a slightly high-end servo. And as you can see, it's got a cord on it. And it says what the wiring is, which is brown, red, and orange. So either the orange or the brown might be signal. We gotta look it up. I'm going to take you over to the browser so we can confirm it. And I need to pull up what type of servo it is. So it says that it's a XMG996R. XMG-996R datasheet servo. I don't know how well this will find it. Okay, so here's the servo. So orange is PWM, so pulse width modulation. BCC is red, and that's probably going to be 5 volts to run it, even though it says it's much higher. So the duty cycle might not be enough with the 5 volts we're working with to actually turn it, but we'll find out. I mean, we're right at the upper edge. And then we have the ground, which is brown. So we have to match that up to our Big Tree Tech. So over here we have ground, voltage, signal. So it's brown for ground, I believe. And then signal's on the opposite side. So we know how to set it up now. So I'm going to go over to the camera so you can see. And I'm going to put the ground on the outside. So I'm going to double check my pins before I plug this in because I don't want to plug into the NeoPixel by accident. And the NeoPixel looks like it's the red connector. So it's the one just below it. So it's going to be right over in here. And as you can see, I have brown, red, and orange. Orange being the signal. They call it PWM, which is pulse width modulation, which means moving squares will say high and low. So I'm going to throw something on it just so you can see if it moves. I don't know how well this will move because of the power that's required to run it. So let me lock it down here so it's not going to slide around. So there we go. Actually need to move this over a little bit so I can get here. So I'm going to pop this out, put this in the computer real quick, and drop this into my computer. And then we'll go over to VS Code and see if we can set this up. Inside VS Code, we're going to go to the configuration.h. We're going to do a search on num servo, I think. And here it is. Now it does say that there's 3 servos by default. This is kind of like a vestigial organ, like your appendix. It's based off of the old ramps design, so they had 4. In this case, we only have 1, unless we get creative. So I'm going to change that to a 1. And then this is the timing of it. We're just going to leave that alone, because this might turn into a mess. So now that we've got that, I'm going to actually rebuild it by just clicking the build button over here. And this might take a second. The next thing that we may have to figure out is the command to move it, and it's a G code. So we need to go over to our browser again and look up the G code. So over here in the browser, we're going to say Marlin firmware. And we'll go here, and they should have a clue as to how to do this. So we're going to search on the tools, nothing, help, G-codes, all documents. Then we'll do a search on the page for servo and hopefully find something. Apparently not. Interesting. I think it's like M something. So I just need to find what the G code might be. So if I don't find it here, there are other places I can look. Like we go over here and we say G code for Marlin and servo. If I spell Marlin right, that is. And it auto-corrected anyways. So, let's see what we got. Looks like M208. Or 280, excuse me. Servo position. Funny how that wouldn't search earlier. So it's saying the index, in this case it's going to be 0. The position is the angle. So this one I believe only moves 180 degrees, so I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I go over to my desk and I move the servo, so I turn it like that, that's moved 180 degrees. Actually, it moves a little bit more than 180 degrees. It might move 270. So I might be clueless on this. But we'll find out what happens when we actually put this in. So I'm going to go over to VS Code and prepare it. So inside VS Code, same as before, we're going to go to the top. I'm going to go to .pio, then build, then Big Tree Tech or Big Tree _ GTR. Right click. You might not see this part. Then I'm going to say Reveal and Explorer. Now that that's up, I'll bring it up on the other screen so you can see what I'm doing. So over here, I'm going to pop it back out by right-clicking. We're going to go to Send to USB drive. I'll pop out the USB drive and we'll reconnect it again. So inside here, we're going to put the drive back in. We'll connect the USB, connect the power. And then we'll go over to Pronterface. Pronterface will connect. Not connecting too well. That's interesting. So let's try that one more time. And we're getting nothing. So what we're going to need to do is double check Device Manager. Maybe it re-enumerated and it's not even showing up. That's awesome. So I may have done something wrong, but we'll find out what that is. So I'll go back to the workbench. I'll power down the system. I'll take this out. I'm going to put this back in my system and see if anything's gone wrong with the drive. And plug this back in. And then I'll go to my desktop and see what's going on. So it looks like something did load. I don't know if we changed something in VS Code, so I'm going to go over there and check it. So inside VS Code, one of the things you need to check on is usually the serial port changes. So I'm going to search on motherboard so I can get in the neighborhood. Then scroll up, and that's fine. So I'm going to recompile it just in case. Apparently something happened with the actual firmware load that didn't go well, is my working theory. So now that that's done, I'll do this real quick. Reveal and Explorer. I'll go back over to my desktop so you can see. Open this. Double check the time. It looks like it just finished 5 minutes ago, so it didn't replace what we did. So that makes me worry because of the date. So let's check on the properties of it real quick. So I'm right-clicking, I'm going to Properties. And it says that it was 6 minutes ago, so there's something off. So what I'm going to do is go back to VS Code and do a clean build. So inside VS Code, I'm going to hit the little garbage can. And then I'm going to build again. Now there may be issues with this actual usage of this that were inside Marlin that no one's actually reported yet. So let's see what happens with that. So the build should only take about 20 seconds on this computer, maybe a little bit longer. And I'll check on the chat while that's going on. Hey Mike, how's it going? Hey Danny. You guys are way ahead of me in the chat. I gotta get a third screen so I can see what you're saying. Okay, that's built 29 seconds, so that's, I guess, kind of good. So I'm gonna go back over to my desk top so you can see it. I'm gonna open the folder. And check the date and time. So it's approximately a minute from where we started. So I'm going to send this over. So we know we just did a good build in theory. So let's go back to the desktop. I'm going to pop out the drive. Hopefully pop it back in as I work around objects to get to it. I'm going to power it up like I normally do. I'm going to apply power. I'll watch for the flashing green light in the center over here. Flashing. I'll wait for a beep on my computer. And then I'll go over to Pronterface. Inside Pronterface, I'll try and connect again. And it's online. Let's try that M280. P0 being the first servo, which we only have one in this case. And then I'm going to say S80. And that's just going to move it, I hope. So it didn't work. So let me go back and double check my direction in the browser. So it's M280. So the command is correct, but the servo might be wrong. So I may have to find a different servo just because it's 5 volts and this one doesn't barely move at 4.8 volts. We know there's possible issues there. Let me go back and see if we can find it. So for this one, the minimum power down here is 4.8 volts, and technically you're not getting 5 volts out of your board. Excuse me. Your voltage is not high enough off that pin. So I need to find something that's slightly lower than the duty cycle for this, because it's probably around 6.5 volts will make it move fine. At this point, this one doesn't. So let me go search for one real quick, and if anything catches on fire, let me know. Okay, I found a Futaba. I'll show you this in 2 seconds. So this is the Futaba one. This in theory will be better. So let me power down the system here. We'll have to check the requirements for this one as well. Hopefully it's not as powerful. But I don't think it's metal driven, so we also need to check how to connect it. So my guess is that it's pretty clear what it is. Voltage ground signal being black is ground. So I'm gonna guess, even though I don't know, and then we'll double check on the web. Either that or I plugged something in wrong, but there's two empty pins right here. Let me just get a close up. Yep. So let's see what this Futaba datasheet looks like. Was it S3003? Oop, I know you can't see what I'm doing. Sorry about that. Data sheet. So we open this up. It looks like we're going to be in a similar boat with this one. Let's see what's going on. 4.8 volts, 6 volts. So it's a little bit lower. May have to find another one, but let's give it a try and see what happens. I'm going to go over to Pronterface real quick here. Plug everything back in. Hopefully not see any smoke. The servo did move a little when I plugged it in. So let's try that command again. And nothing. So let's try 0. And nothing. So it looks like I do need another servo. I know I've got more. Evening, everybody that just joined in. Let me see if I can find that servo. So I did find a servo. This might be kind of hard to see. So I'm disconnecting the power so I can connect it. Similar wire structure. So I'm assuming that ground is ground. Pull this out of the way. Place that there. Now there's a little black line on it. So this might be... Whoop, may have to move some things around to get it in the right place. So let's see if we can do this right here. And let me see if I can put like tape on it so you can see the movement. As soon as I find some tape, there we go. I don't know how well this is going to work out. I'm going to get creative. And let's power it back up and see what happens. So it did move a little. So I'm gonna connect again. And I'm going to try and move it 45 degrees. And it moves. So the problem that I was running into, I'll do negative 45 so you can see it go back the other way. That's probably the 0 point, that's why it's hanging like that. But now you know that you can actually do a servo and there's certain requirements to make it run. Right now I'm stuck in a funky state here, so let me do a disconnect, reconnect. It's actually still stuck in that state. I'm going to plug it back in. Going to disconnect, reconnect, and move it to 0 real quick here. So there's a little bit maybe too much current, but that might be a separate issue with the servo I picked. But it's not working exactly the way I planned. So, does anybody have another question that they want to see? Hopefully, not a servo. Apparently, I don't have the one on hand that I normally work with. A funny feeling it's in a box someplace and I just put it away. But I know not to use metals high voltage servos anymore. So your PC takes hours to compile? If that's the case, it might be something to do with the processor and memory. In the case that I'm using, I'm actually using a video card to process it. So it's kind of made the load a little bit lighter on the computer. Also, the processor is a little bit higher end than normal. Actually, a lot higher, but I think it's running a, what is it, 36X or 3600X. So it's got multiple threads to do it, and that's why it seems like it's very fast. On other machines that I've used in the past, being laptops, the time that it takes to compile is upwards of sometimes half an hour. It shouldn't be that way. I think they've done something funky with the code that's causing it, but at the moment, those are just a couple things to consider. The upgrade of your machine is a great way to deal with it. I don't know if you guys know about this website, so let's see if I can find it. If you go to PC Picker, I think is what it is. You can actually build your own laptop and it'll tell you what parts to buy. So if you're over here, they have view the build guides. A lot of people like to show what they built. Go to System Builder and you can pick out the CPU that you want to work with. The one that I'm currently working with is $3600X, and it's that one right there, I believe. So it's got 6 cores. That's one thing that you can say is, okay, add that. When I got it, actually the price was a lot cheaper. Apparently it's gone up a lot. And then the cooling fan comes with it, so you don't need one. The motherboard, they give you the options. I think I got the first one in here. So you can just add that. And it's basically building up the laundry list of things that you can purchase. There are alternate sources that they show. Like if you click on here, it'll show you different merchant or different places where you can buy it. As you can see, the prices may vary. The only reason I use Amazon is because I have Prime, so the shipping's free. But all the prices are essentially the same, and they're always usually in stock. Down here, video cards. There's some really good ones that you could probably use. I can't remember which one I have, but it's not high end. But that'll also help with your processing. And then there's other things you can choose that'll speed up your computer, like your storage, obviously. So let me see if I can find that. Probably is going to be storage. And I'm running with the Samsung 970 Evo. So I think it's a gig. Apparently that's gone up in price too. But it's M.2, so it's faster for the computer. These are like 3 things that you can do to dramatically increase the speed. But that's up to you how fast you want to actually build. The reason that my builds actually move quick is because of a lot of these choices that I've made. Let me check on the chat here. Is that helpful to people, or would you like me to talk more about PCs? Because I could probably show you very old ones that you've never seen before that people don't think exist anymore. But I apparently have a collection of old PCs because I've been kind of doing this since I was a child. Apparently my calculator was interesting in my day. If you change your OS to Linux, you're going to also have to consider your COM port might have issues. You have to do like a delete and then reinsert that COM port. There's something funky that happens in Linux if you're planning on using it for a build machine. I've only run into the issue once, like a couple years back, and then I went back to Windows. But the reason that I work from Windows, obviously, is that that's what most people have. If I were to do it in Linux, unfortunately, a lot of people will be lost. But yeah, Linux probably is faster and it's probably more stable. There's a slight learning curve for people that come from other PC types, but it's definitely a more well, it's a more stable operating system, I believe. Granted, I use Linux every day for tests, not that you get to see, but let's see what we got here. Any other questions? I'm gonna probably cut it short today because apparently my subject matter is a little bit goofy. Let's see, Danny. I do have a question. 12-volt fans on extension board using 24-volt power supply. Can I move a jumper, or do I really need to use a 24-volt or 12-volt regulator? Yeah, you're going to either have to find a way to step down the voltage going into it, or you're going to have to buy a 24-volt fan, and I know they're kind of hard to find. But that's my way around the problem, is just match the voltage to your power supply voltage. Otherwise, I've made a mistake in the past where I've hooked a 12-volt fan to a 24-volt power supply for my board, and the fan lasted less than a day. So I don't suggest mixing them unless you really know what you're doing with the power supply. Some people say to use a buck converter, but I've not used one in that situation. I just try and match them up because I'm afraid, for one, my board, and two, for replacing the fan later on, or even safety. Let's see if there's any other questions I might be able to answer. Well, I did the steppers. So if you do have questions, there's a couple of places that you can go to either ask me or other people. I'll show you one of them right now. So we have something called Discord where a bunch of people can actually share information. And I'll show you what Discord looks like. So over here is my Discord channel. It's in the description of the actual video below. And as you can see, there's lots of different conversations occurring daily. People exchange information on how to do things. So if there's something I don't cover and I'm not available or sleeping, there's other people that are definitely awake that can answer your question. And it's actually in the general chat or general open chat that most people reside. Almost nobody uses the voice chat. That's what I use the streaming for now, is I'll just do a stream. But if you're looking for answers, there's a lot of experienced people in here. And obviously there's lots of interesting subjects they talk about. Apparently my Chinese or Japanese is not very good, but I think they're saying Wi-Fi firmware for this part. But your guess is as good as mine. And the other thing is, I do have a Patreon that people seem to be joining all of a sudden. If you're interested in that, it's only $3 a month. And I also have a Twitch channel as well. I'm trying to build that up because I want to see if I can actually meet the minimums. Oh. What I meant was the M5 board. There's a jumper that says 12 volts. But no explanation, just wondering if I can change it. Possibly? That might be a solution. Let me pull one out and look. Might have to read the directions on this. Of course, I put the M5 someplace else. I think I play a game with myself where I put boards in different places. But I have two of them, so I know they're hiding somewhere. Otherwise, we're going to have to look at the manual. There it is. Or at least I hope it is. So the M5 board. I'll pull up the desk in a second. So over here, you were saying on the M5 board, which I can't seem to get in the screen. Let me make sure things are powered down. So we have the M5 board. I'm gonna have to look at the board in the right direction probably. And there is a jumper over here, like you said, that says 12 volts. And then VIN. I'm guessing that is possible. So it's default to 12 volts. We can actually test it. So what I'm gonna do, test this, is I have to run a separate power to it at the moment. The problem is I have 12 volts for power everywhere here, so let me see if I have a 24 volt unit. 12, 12. And 12. So I can run another power supply to it. It's going to be a little bit of work. I might save this for tomorrow to talk about because I want to test it in a more safe fashion. Because obviously my desktop's a mess. But what he's talking about is this little jumper over here, either being here or here. I don't know what the second pin means. It might be 24 volts, but I need to actually do some research over here. There is also something about, what is it, ground signal voltage, so that might be a servo port as well. It's an interesting board. It looks like there's a bunch of end stops over here that might be reallocated for other things. These are obviously fans. These are temperature sensors and heaters. But it says 12 or 24 volts, so you might be able to run 24 or 12 separately to this one, where it says this. Sorry, the focus is horrible. See if you can see that. Might be my lighting's terrible, but what we're talking about is you might be able to do a different voltage on this board. This is some kind of test I'd have to run when I clean up the desktop a little here, because the real estate, not good. So maybe I'll save that for tomorrow, see if we can talk about that a little bit more and get an idea of how that works. But it's been great that you guys came to visit. I'll be on tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For some people it might be real early, for other people it might be real late. But thank you very much for stopping by, and please like and subscribe, and be safe and have a nice night. So take care.